Greetings and welcome back to Fun with Dashcams. This is going to be video 6 Charlie. This is an addendum video to review what would be a more common example of a rearview mirror DVR. Something more interesting about this particular model is that it supports a front and a rear camera, and it has the option for GPS, which we will cover in the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm also trying a different video format for this video. Instead of having to rely on a lot of external video sources and post-processing, we're going to try and do it all in one go. So we're going to do it via screen capture and multiple windows. So moving on, as I said, the one that we're going to be showing today is the X16AV, a very generic camera. Has many different resellers. Some claim to offer Bluetooth, but for this particular model that we're looking at, the 16AV, it does not. There may be some additional samples out there that do support a Bluetooth, but it's probably not going to be this model, even though it may come under this name. And I will show you the box to give you to show you that there is a dead giveaway if you happen to see the box, that this is a 16AV, and everything I discuss in this particular video and review of the features is this camera and does not support anything else that may be advertised. Also to note that there's a little bit of confusion because some of the documentation that's on the web will show features of this camera that really, again, do not quite match its actual performance. This is about a 2-year-old design. It is high def, and something in particular is it claims that it supports 1080p, but I have found that that's really nothing more than just an upscale of the 720. It's still good video, but it really is kind of a waste of processing power. So we're going to go ahead and cover the features that make this camera particular to the others, and in particular to the 2000, the AV2000B that we had previously sampled, to show you the differences of the first example versus this, which is a more proper example of a rear view camera DVR. And we're going to cover what I found was the good, the bad, and the not so ugly. So go ahead and do a tabletop of this camera. I wanted to go ahead and show you this is a live video feed, and this is what is included in the box. This, of course, is a rear view camera, and as you can see, there are no side panels like you saw in the 2000. It pretty much looks like a rear view camera, and you can also see the screen kind of coming out because the screen, again, like in these rear view cameras, the rear view mirror format, the mirror itself functions as a one-way mirror. So when there's light projecting out through the screen, you can actually see it. And what's also nice is this actually has kind of a blue tinted anti-glare, whether you can see that or not. Downside is it's a fingerprint magnet. But we're going to cover the things that come with it and why you don't have to worry about that too much. Comes, of course, with a 3-meter or about a 10-foot power cord. It comes with a pretty generic rear view camera, which goes on the back or can go anywhere you want it to. You may not recognize this particular camera from other things like the i1000, which you may have seen online, or in the F90G that we reviewed. So again, a pretty generic, has a 4-pin dongle which fits into this extension cable, which is going to be a more common, the most common configuration when you have one of these rear view, when you have the rear facing camera to go on the back windscreen or hatch or whatever. Of course, came with a USB data cable. The extension cable, this is interesting about this camera, is it has two different harnesses basically. It has a 2.5 millimeter lead to go, which is 3-banded, which was an older AV standard, to go into the AV in on the camera for the rear channel. Of course, has the 4-pin coupler, and these are actually leads that will then hook up to the rear illuminating basically the backup lights. So when you put your car in reverse and it illuminates via those rear-facing white lights typically. This is going to be either via vampire tap or directly wired in, or maybe to some other light. But when you do this, it'll actually activate an interesting feature on this camera, which uses the screen and the back camera as a backup camera, as in you know, to help you back up to give you better visibility, and also creates an on-screen display showing the different markers for distance. So I just thought that was interesting. I don't use it, but it might be interesting to some people. So that's part of the reason why this is a popular design, because it gives you both cameras, plus it gives you a backup camera, and it is recording while you're backing up, so that's what's nice about it. So this particular model, the 16AV, this particular variant, they will come with Velcro or with these rubber bands. Now these are hard plastic, but they will form themselves around the mirror, and these will just hook in and latch in and hold it on. You could probably also use rubber bands, but these are pretty stout. It also comes with a polishing cloth, you know, so you can get rid of any fingerprints you may attach, but it's just a cheap microfiber. And of course comes with the owner's manual, a rundown of this camera, because this is more of a stealth model. It pretty much looks like, you know, from the inside passenger compartment, like a normal, like just an extension safety mirror for your rearview mirror. Turn it around though, and then you start to see the differences. The big silver ring is pretty obvious, but not obvious unless you're looking for it. Of course, like I said, front-facing camera, has 2 degrees of motion. You cannot rotate it like you could with the 2000B, but it has the up, down, left, right axis. This ring is purely cosmetic. Some models that you see are based on this don't have it. As you can see, it's a very thin model, unlike the 2000, which is very heavy and would actually pull the camera down. This is a very light, you know, it's a couple of ounces. And majority of your interface, as you can see, what's going to plug in is on the top. So it of course has USB power, but it also supports USB data. So the trick with using a USB cable and then say using a laptop to download, it'll automatically go into USB data mode, which is nice. It does not have any kind of an AV out, HDMI or anything, because really that's superfluous. You wouldn't really want to do that. Once you mount this, you want to keep it in place. AV in for the back camera, standard definition, supports up to 32 gig SD cards. Class 10 is what you need. Don't use anything slower than that. And this is an interesting add-on feature. It supports GPS. Just like you remember the 2000, it's a similar Novatech chipset, so it will accept a GPS antenna, and it will encode it in the files, so I understand. The problem is I have yet to find. I actually bought this is a G-Mouse. It's the VK163, and it has 3 bands, but you try to plug it in, it doesn't plug in all the way, and it actually did not work. So I did research online, tried to find where you could find the external GPS for this thing. I don't know if it exists or not. They claim it does. There is a port. I believe one exists, but I don't know where it is. So looking back here, we have a reset button, and of course the speaker for playback. One thing note, nice 4-inch screen. And your pretty typical buttons, your power, menu, up, down, and OK, which is pretty typical for most cameras. There is no panic button. These buttons are multifunction, so this will flip your view. It supports front, back, and picture-in-picture flipped, so either or just front or back only. It supports interactive mute, turn it on off, and it supports you know, the other typical features you see, you know, in panic. And I believe the OK is OK will turn it on and off, and this is panic, so this will do the forced lock recording. And that's pretty much a simple rundown of this camera. Just to show you the online version, this is actually what it was. I ordered it off of Amazon from Blue Sky Sea, and they give you a pretty good rundown. You know, like I said, this is everything I showed you, with the exception of the owner's manual. This is a Chinese camera, and that's one thing to note here. Is you'll notice here that the owner's manual is written in Chinese, and that is because this camera is really intended for the Asian market. It does support Russian, does support English, it supports a few other languages, but it is the GPS lock on it. For you know, syncing time up with the GPS signal which is interesting. And the time zones, it only supports Asia. So it's not for worldwide distribution. So if you want to use it somewhere, you have to turn that off. Otherwise, it'll really mess with it, and you have to basically just set the time as whatever. It's not going to be your local time if you live anywhere outside of Asia. So I just thought I'd bring that up. But as you saw, the pretty typical camera, that big nasty ring. Of course, it has the IR LEDs, which are useless. But overall, it's a very nice, clean, lightweight. And if I didn't have the 1080p cameras in my setup that you've seen in the other video of my particular setup, I would actually have considered putting this in, even though it's only 720. Yes, it does support 1080. We'll cover that in a moment. So moving on, like we showed, this particular one uses those rubber loops to attach on the back. It supports all the normal features: record on power, auto power off. It goes in 1, 3, and 5 minutes for everything, for video length as well as the auto power off. But in reality, I've set it for 3 minutes, 5 minutes. As soon as you disable power to it, it's going to shut off within a minute. So that's really almost like a useless feature. It will record up to 3 minutes, but I found that the battery is pretty chintzy, so I don't think it will really make it past 5 minutes. I've had it record up to 3 minutes, and then it shuts off shortly thereafter. There are a lot of sources online that will say that it records in MOV, and in fact, even the instruction manual says that it records in MOV. It actually does not. It records in an H.264 format on MP4 files, so it's not a Sorensen for Mac, for the Apple format. It's actually standard, open standard H.264. Like I said, the option for the GPS, that I put under the bad. It does support GPS. It's a Novatech chipset, the same one the same model line that the 2000B in the original video of Section 6 supports. But again, you got to find an antenna to do it, and since I didn't, I don't know where it is. If you find one, maybe in Asia, good luck. You're better off than we are in North America. So, but G-sensor data, I didn't find that it really support. I think that when you turn off the G-sensor data, it actually shuts off the G-sensor, because I went ahead and disabled the G-sensor, and it did not record any G-sensor data, but it was recording when I did have G-sensor enabled. It actually did automatically lock, but I didn't want to lock files, so it won't record G-sensor data if you disable G-sensor. It actually turns the G-sensor off. So that's what was kind of interesting about this camera, is it's pretty much either if you have it on, it's going to lock files. You turn it off, it actually disables it. So it's an all or nothing kind of deal with this. You don't get any G-sensor data, so you'll have to rely on what's recorded in the video about if there's an impact or anything. I'm not going to give an example of registrator viewer. Like I said, this is a Novatech processor, the NT 9500 series, 95,000 or something, I don't remember. So it does support 2 cameras, front and rear, and we'll give you examples of that. It does support parking mode. It does support motion detection. I didn't really use that, but it does, and it picks up within about 15 seconds, and does have a G-sensor for auto file lock. The built-in screen is both good and bad, and we'll cover that in a moment. So first of all, talking about the good, it's a 4.3-inch screen, as you saw, very large. The 2000B had a 3-inch screen, which is still pretty sizable, because a lot of these will have like a 2-point-something-inch screen. But this is 4.3 because it actually is intended for a backup camera, as well as a rear-facing camera for DVR recording. It has a very nice menu structure, and there's plenty of rundowns on that, so I'm not going to do that with this one. You can just look up the X16AV. You'll find them all day long. But it's a very nice, clean menu structure. The UI is very easy to follow and very clean. And we'll cut. As we said before, what are the advantages of having the rear view camera? It's a larger replacement, anti-glare, so you don't have to flip your rear view mirror up and down. It does provide full 360, one camera facing front and one camera facing back, or wherever you want it to go. Again, I highlighted this. It functions as a backup camera for when you're backing up. As soon as you put it in the rear view, in reverse, it will automatically flip over into that mode. It has, pretty good daytime, and I will show you a sample of that. Understand that I am doing a screen capture, so screen recording, so it is not going to display in full 30 frames per second. It'll be 10 to 15 frames per second, but you'll see the quality. Average nighttime, like most of these other cheaper cameras. This is not WDR, but it is high def, but it's going to capture with whatever light's available. So, particulars of the cameras. Certain sources say that this is 140 degrees, and the rear may say 120. It's actually 120 degrees in the front, and it natively records at 720 at 30 frames per second. I did try it at 1080p. It did say it's recording at 1080p at 30 frames, but I've noticed that it kind of lags when it hits black, when it's very dark, and I don't think it's really recording at 1080p. It's 1080p and then scaling up from a 720 at 30. So you're pushing the processor a little bit, and it's very noticeable. So you don't really gain an advantage in detail doing 1080p. That's why I put a star here. Yes, it does, but you don't really gain much. So 720 at 30 frames per second still provides you sufficient detail for an $80 to $100 dual camera. I actually got this for about $65. So it's within the 60 to 80 range, actually. But you'll see them a lot of times in the 80 to 100. However, you can find specials, and I got this on a special. Rear camera, of course, is standard definition at 30 frames per second. It's actually a very clean standard definition. There, of course, is some pixelation and artifacting because it scales up to from a 640 by 480 stream to give you more of a wide definition, but it still gives you pretty good detail. Now, going to the bad, again, larger mirror, like I said before, will obstruct sun visors possibly. In my car, I found that it actually did not. I don't know if it's because my sun visor is too small or the mirror that I have is just in a very good position, but I didn't find that it obstructed. What it will do is it will disable an auto adjustment. So if your camera has a light sensor that automatically adjusts for someone with their brights on in the back of you, this will cover that. It'll cover any sensor like that, so it will not automatically adjust. In fact, you don't want it to. You want to set this camera in its position and leave it. Otherwise, as we've previously discussed, it will skew the camera, the front-facing camera. The front-facing camera, I did notice, doesn't have as much freedom as the 2000B did. So it's, the adjustment is maybe about 10 to 15 degrees in either direction, up, down, left, right, but it is sufficient given that it's a 120 degree view. You are still able to capture the majority of the view in the front of the car. And again, because you have to adjust your mirror so far down angle and to the side, that's really the downside of this particular model. But I found that it still captured the entire field of view in the front. I just had to adjust it all the way to the left and down a little bit. Again, the warning: do not adjust your mirror. That's the whole point of having these. Is it basically covers your rearview mirror as a very convenient mounting option. I actually like this idea. Again, it's your preference. Where do you get the external GPS? That was the downside. I wanted to try it out with the GPS. I special ordered what I thought was a GPS that would work with it. It did not, so it's $20 down the tube. Well, live and learn. So assuming that you have the GPS model, it'll be in the 80 to 100 because you're going to pay about $20 for the GPS antenna. Otherwise, like I said, I got this within the 60 to 80 range. It does record at 720. Some of these are single lens only and will record at 1080p at 30 frames. It's based on this model. It just won't support the rear camera. The not so ugly, of course, you have true front back recording with a backup camera, which was interesting. Mounts to mirror, so it's extremely discreet. Very nice, and it gives you a very large no glare. I found that was very nice. I was almost tempted to keep it, but I just decided not to. I'm going to keep what I have currently because I've already spent this much time and money to put it in. But this would have been my selection if I did not already have the 0801s. So moving on to the actual card on the camera, I went ahead and just did a dump of the trans flash card, the micro SD card on there, and these are your basic folder folder structure that it's going to create. Because it is a dual channel, it doesn't matter if you have the second camera plugged in or not. It will create an A and a B. As you can see, nothing was locked because I had that feature completely disabled. It does support supposedly it says a 5 megapixel. I don't think it's 5 megapixel, but I did not use the photo feature. I primarily was interested in video. So in video you have, of course, front and back, and as you can see, it does break it down, and this naming convention should be familiar. This is a typical Novatech, here it's appending the A versus appending the B, as we've covered in previous videos, so you know the front channel versus the back channel. So just to give you a little sample, we will look at, here's a daytime sample. Audio is okay, and as you can see, it does give you a timestamp. I have the windows open, so you're getting a little bit of sound from that. But as you can see, the video is pretty decent. Let me scale that up a little bit. Let's find a more of an evening video. And as you can see, it's you know, as we get a little bit closer, because it's 720, you got to kind of be right up on the car in front of you to be able to view the rear license plate. In some countries, because they have larger lettering. Here in the States, most of our license plates use lettering that's only about 3 inches tall, so it's more difficult to be able to capture the detail. In the event that you were involved in some type of accident where someone went in reverse, or you got pushed from the back and hit somebody else. So, you know, but that's the trade-off. Like I said, I tried it at 1080 and 720, but it was not really an increase in detail, just an increase in the size of the video, and actually a lag in the frame rate at times. During daytime, it has no problems doing 30 frames per second, but once you get into evening and dark, or very bizarre lighting conditions where light levels change dramatically. Okay, so here we are kind of coming to the back, and as you can see, you can read, but read the back license plate and any other details that you might need to pick up. But the important thing is you're getting a good video log in 780p. Now we'll look at an example of a nighttime video. And where do we have one? No, we don't want that. This is lower light. Pardon me for a second, like I said, this is pretty rough. And I might not have a proper nighttime video to show you, but we'll go ahead and use the latest one we have. It gets nighttime kind of early around here. That's low light. But the point is, it's going to give you pretty typical low light, you know, for a non-WDR. This is lower light with a headlights, so maybe we'll try that one. This is about 30 minutes before evening. And it's still picking up pretty good. You kind of notice a little bit of purple tint, so I have a feeling that, like we previously discussed, this might or might not have a UV filter. I think it does. So that's just an artifact of the lighting conditions. It's just a little bit more on the purple side. But it still provides pretty decent. But as you can see, kind of your detail in the video, if you notice from bright light, you could see a little bit more detail. But as the light falls, the camera starts to try to compensate, and things get a little bit blurry. You start to lose definition. But like I said, for a $60 camera with 2 lenses, it's not bad. Now, looking at the rear. We'll first start with a low level light. It's a little bit more washed out. But it is providing you, and again, this is because we've got kind of bad lighting conditions. Light is starting to fall, and we're looking at headlights, so the camera is going to kind of go a little wonky anyways. One thing I noticed is that the perspective of this camera is 180 degrees flipped. So it's kind of funny because in reality, the view you're looking at, this road that you're seeing should be on that side. So that's one thing I thought was kind of funny about this particular little camera is it's flipped 180. The perspective is 180 degrees from what it should be. But it still gives you a good record from the rear. Now looking at a daylight sample, this is a little bit after noon. You can see that it does a lot better in normal light. Let's see if we can kind of, for standard definition, this of course is scaled up on a screen that's almost double, with about a third more resolution. You can see the slight pixelation in the edges, the interlacing, because it's scaling up from a standard definition to a something a little larger, but it still provides a good record from the back. And if a car is really close up to you, I actually was able to read a few license plates, but that car had to be very, very close because I was being tailgated. So of course they were very, very close. They were about 2 feet from my bumper, and I was actually able to read their the front license plate. So in a pinch, the rear camera actually does record pretty decent detail, but you have to be very up close. Otherwise, it provides an average record for a rear view camera. So I hope this you found this informative, and we're going to go ahead and close this out. And good luck, and hope this was interesting to you.